Hi, my name's Georgia Bazin, and I am here with the beautiful Linda Pettit for a conversation about creativity. So, Linda, I know your background started in psychology.
Yeah.
And actually, I noticed on your website today that actually you also have an MA in journalism,
Yes.
which I didn't know before. So, there's obviously been a creative element running through you with your journalism. But did you see that actually as creative or as your intellect at the time? Where did it come from?
You know, I so that occurred um, when I was in my 20s. So I didn't have a spiritual kind of understanding that would have separated out intellect or God. And I was raised Catholic and had a pretty traditional religious understanding of what God was. So that wouldn't have even occurred to me. But what is interesting is that although I worked as a graphic designer for 3 years after I got out of college, and then did have an 8 or 9 year career in public relations, where I was doing
Mm.
corporate communications and marketing, all kinds of promotion, anything that could be connected with that, I had an opportunity to do. I don't remember that I ever thought of myself as creative. And in
Interesting.
fact, I'm quite sure that if someone had asked me in that period all the way into my 40s, are you creative? I probably would have said no.
Mm.
And in fact, it was really funny because three people sent me a card, uh, a little greeting card, and on it it has a beautiful sort of circle of women, and it says something like, there are artisans and there are writers and there are painters and there are this and there are that. And then there are some people who are artists of life. They weave the fabric of community around others. And I thought, yeah, that must be me. I must be creative at connection because I was a pretty good, in my own quiet way, a pretty good connector.
Mm.
But after my first husband died in 1999, and the following year I was healing, and he died suddenly. And uh, one day I was standing in the kitchen, and I think I had reached that place in a grief recovery experience where you're starting to just beginning to start to turn away from the past and look at the future. So there was kind of a moment of pivot in my life going on that, yeah, I've got to accept what's happened. These are the cards I've been dealt, and now I have to rebuild my identity and my life around a different set of circumstances. And I happened to be looking at a Sounds True catalog, and I saw a book called The 12 Secrets of Highly Creative Women.
You recommended this to me. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
by Gail McMeekin, a coach. And it's one of those experiences, Georgia, where it felt like it was literally calling me. And I read the reviews and the description, and I thought, I got to get this book. And I got it, and I remember reading it and crying my way through it because I thought, oh my gosh, I'm not only a creative woman, I'm a highly creative woman. And I resonated with it. The book is a series of interviews with creators of all different walks of life and in all different venues. But Gail searched for the common themes in their lives, and she came up with 12. And I related to every single one of them. And I thought, oh my goodness.
A eureka moment.
Yeah, it really was. It really was.
And
And
how did that change how you connected with life, what you do?
well, there were some other insights that occurred around that as I read that. I thought, everybody's creative. It's not just me, and it's not just these highly creative women. Everybody creates. I started to just see that differently, that we are all creative, and that I was starting, and this was before I bumped into an understanding called the three principles, which explained this to me a little more clearly, made it more accessible. I really began to see that we are made of something that is by its very nature creative. And so we can't not be creative. But when we don't feel as connected to that as we can, sometimes we don't feel the fullness of our creativity. And so the more I had that spiritual understanding of creativity, I don't know, it's sort of like the more I just breathed into it, sank into it, started to move from it, and creativity and releasing my creativity, just allowing it to flow and honoring it, became real central to my life.
The question of, I sent you some questions before.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I guess one of those was, do you think we have free will in what we create?
Yeah, I absolutely do.
Okay.
But I base this on my experience. So I love to write, that, and I write a lot, and it's becoming at this stage in my life one of my primary vehicles for self-expression of my creativity. And there are times when a thought just drifts in to my mind, and it's like, write about this, or I'll see something, and I know immediately that part of why I saw it was that I meant to write about it.
Yeah.
That there's something really powerful in what I've seen that I can offer in service to others with my writing. But sometimes I don't attend to it. Sometimes I don't honor that.
Interesting.
Sometimes I just get busy and I do other things, and that particular idea or thought or creative inspiration or insight just sort of, wafts through and goes back into the ether. But and it's just not willful. It's just, I think there's always a balance in everyone's life between getting distracted with the minutia of life that all of us have to do, and honoring the creative muse. And I kind of see that as the nature of God or mind or spirit or creator, divine feminine, whatever you want to call it. They're all synonyms to me. That it's like this giant wave of creativity thinking through all of us. And it just, if we bypass one, we don't attend to one, another one comes behind it. And so that's really beautiful.
Well, I know there's a lady, and I can't remember her name, who is a writer who talked about, and I can't remember if you reminded me of this, but my daughter did recently, about how she describes the fact that she could feel an idea coming in, and it's like grabbing the wind, and the fact that if she didn't grab it, she would feel it go. So her feel was to, I've got to get a pen. I've got to grab that one, because it will come and go and it'll pass on to someone else. Which of course explains the same thing as you're explaining.
Yeah.
Because is there anything that you've gone, I should have written that, or I should have done that, because it had that idea that dropped in, where you didn't, and you've gone, I've just seen so-and-so do that?
No, I'm not a regretful person. I just am not. And I don't, I try, it isn't even a matter of trying. It just seems like it just is that, at least in that regard, I pretty much stay in the now. And if I can attend to something, I will say I have gotten better at carrying a little notebook around, so I jot things down, because sometimes I'm in the middle of something, I can't attend to a thought, but I come back, oh yeah, that was really cool, I want to do something with that. But I mean, there's no I don't have any sense of any kind of punishing energy behind life.
No. I mentioned other words. Do you see where this idea drops in, and as you say, life takes you in a different direction, and then you go, oh, actually, that idea must have gone to them because they've just written what I thought about.
Yeah.
The fact that actually it isn't selective.
Yeah.
It will turn up again and again, just waiting for someone to pick it up.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. In fact, it brings to mind that in the book, The Writer's Journey by, I'm going to blank on his name now. It's a wonderful book. A man who applied the hero's journey to writing, and he's a big film writer, script writer in Hollywood, and he worked for Disney for a long time. And he said that often, like there's a particular example he gave of, they were working on The Lion King. He was working on the Lion King team, and they were discussing what to do with Rafiki. Rafiki is the sort of shaman gorilla, right, who carries the rattle. And there was discussion about whether he should just be a gorilla or he should be this sort of mystic threshold guardian, following the sort of hero's journey understanding. And the author of the book makes the comment that at the exact same time, an idea about what to do dropped into the minds of at least 4 people in the room.
Wow.
And one person verbalized it, but then the other said, oh my gosh, that idea just came to me too. So it follows your idea that, there's these beautiful divine thoughts pulsing into the next available receptive mind.
So I guess it just shows, as long as we stay open,
yeah,
I mean, it's limitless as to what can drop into us.
Yeah.
But I know you've been away, focused, writing your book.
Mm-hmm.
How is it being alone, writing your book for so long?
Well, I took a sabbatical, a writing sabbatical for 5 weeks in the mountains of West Virginia to do the next round of revisions, and it was wonderful. I am very quiet by nature. I just am, and I love solitude. I don't mind the solitary nature of writing. I don't have any struggles with it, and the gift that I gave myself of just taking time away, not having to attend to changing the bed sheets, not have to attend to making dinners for others, all the just different things that we do, to really just sit and write was wonderful. I mean, I wrote every day that I was there, except for the very last segment when Bill came down to join me in the farmhouse where I was staying. I wrote every day, sometimes 8-10 hours. And it was lovely. It was just lovely, except for going for walks in the woods and the hills. I wrote. Yeah, and it was a really beautiful thing. But I know that other writers that I've worked with, because I work as a mentor to writers, sometimes struggle with that. Not everyone finds that that the solitary nature of writing as easy as I do. And so in a way, I'm really grateful that I don't get distracted easily when I'm writing.
I mean, I know I'm with Jules, obviously, and actually I've just done a writing one with Maria Ilfie Woods over the summer.
Oh, I'm jealous. That's wonderful.
It's amazing how actually everything becomes potential.
Yeah.
And I noticed that there's a lilting in my mind to almost every thought as to where it could go.
Oh, that's beautiful.
But it also gets rather busy up there sometimes too. And I know you do cards because you've done them for me. What do you see there? How did you get into them?
Oh, it wasn't any big deal. I think long ago, mm, I don't know how long, I was probably in my 30s.
Mm.
I got very, very touched by Native American spirituality. And I started to do some retreats and workshops around the medicine wheel. And someone that I knew sent me a gift. It was a gift of medicine wheel cards.
Mm.
And I just thought they were beautiful. And by that time, I knew that I was intuitive. I did not know at that point that everyone was intuitive, but I felt it in myself and I experienced it in myself. I would have premonitions. I would know things. I had a sense a lot that, just knowing the rightness of taking a particular action or following a particular thought. I'd come to trust that intuition was my secret sauce in my therapy work, because I would just get these ideas about where to go with people or what to ask them. And I would think, how do I know that? I knew it was coming from some source behind life. And it just occurred to me when I got the cards, if the source behind life can come through in my thoughts, could the source of life not behind life not come through in a thought to turn a particular card?
Mm.
And I thought that was fun.
Yeah.
And often I would turn a card and I would go, whoa, that's perfect for right now. Oh man, I see the message of that. I mean, do you have that happen to you? Because I know you do cards too.
Oh, I do cards. I do all sorts of ones if I say that. And it's like anything, if I say, they're just an insight in a different way.
Yeah.
And it's a different way that this creative energy that we talk about with writing or with painting or with anything gets to play, really, isn't it?
Yeah. And I don't do cards every day. Sometimes I'll go a long time without doing them because I trust that I have such a profound trust for the wisdom that's coming through,
Mm.
that I look for it. I'm kind of constantly sort of looking into the silence to hear the next thing. And where I'm most likely to draw cards is when I just feel a little busy, or maybe feeling a little flat, or like there's something that's just at the edge of my awareness, but I'm not seeing it with focus or clarity. And then I'm in that situation, I'm kind of likely to say, well, I wonder what would come up if I drew a card. And so I'll draw one or more. And very often there's just something in the symbolic world, because those are all cards are, there's symbols. There's something in the symbolic world that bypasses
Mm.
all of the intellectual thoughts, and my intellect is trying to make sense of the, sort of the wisdom that's coming through, that I just see something, or I know something, or at least it sets me in a mind space of, whoa, that's interesting. What's there for me?
Yeah, so it leads to deeper inquiry.
Yeah.
And of course, I mean, the artists, when they're drawn to make them, it's creation playing through them to do just that.
Yeah.
And then that creation is just getting passed on to us to play and explore with. So it's, as you say, a never-ending cycle of creation.
Yeah. Yeah. I started to see, amazing things happen for my clients when I started to play around with helping people to think differently about creativity, to see it differently. After I met Gail McMeekin, I asked for her permission to run workshops for women around the 12 secrets of highly creative women. So we would meet for 12 weeks and we'd take a chapter a week and just read it. And I was referring a lot of my psychotherapy clients into those creativity groups. And I started to see that a good many of them were getting to places they wanted to get to. They were healing. They were feeling better. They were doing better, much, much faster. And really remarkable things started to happen before my eyes. Now, at the time, I didn't have the three principles understanding. Couldn't have explained that to you real clearly. But now I see that as they were focusing on what's coming through that has that element of creation, of giving back, of sharing, of exploring the beauty of being human, that a lot of the thinking that was keeping them stuck in a feeling of not having mental well-being was just falling away. And really beautiful things were happening. Really beautiful things were happening. So I really pivoted my work toward awakening that creative spirit in the people I worked with. And then later, years later, I came across the principles and got even more and more effective and efficient at sharing that. But it was like life was teaching me all the way along.
It does that, doesn't it?
Yeah, there's something very powerful about all of us claiming our creative nature and pointing our attention to it and serving it. I'm so aware that, as we talked about earlier, if I don't decide to make the time to sit down at my computer and write, the writing doesn't get done. Mm. I might have a lot of great ideas, but like we talked about, they go back into the whatever, and they don't get served. So I make a decision to show up. I make a decision to show up in service of my creativity, whether it's writing or content creation for my business, and beautiful things happen when I do that.
I mean, it's interesting because I know I can experience actually when something wants to get written and I ignore it, it's like the universe keeps going nudge, nudge, nudge. Really felt feeling that maybe actually sometimes some things are actually meant for us, that even though we keep turning away, or I haven't clocked, something just wants to come into being, that actually it will keep doing this. And I know so often when I've experienced that, it's because actually in that piece of writing, it's almost like it's the universe coaching me coaching me bringing in insight into being for me from it. But I don't know if you've experienced that too.
It's funny. I just published a piece on Facebook, a very short piece about a funeral that I attended a couple of weeks ago. And it was the funeral of my niece's husband, a Detroit police officer who was killed in an active shooter incident. And it was so funny there was a piece I wrote about in there about seeing two beautiful Black individuals, a tall man and a short little boy, father, son, grandson, grandfather, I wasn't sure. But they were in bright colors. The older man was in a beautiful yellow tracksuit. The little boy was in a matching tracksuit that was blue. The older man had a yellow cap across his heart, and the little boy had a bright red cap across his heart. And they were standing at attention like an honor guard for this procession, for this young Black police officer. And the minute I saw that, it was like, that's what it was like for me. It was like something hit me really hard, and I knew I would write about it. Yeah. I knew it. I just knew it. I don't know how I knew it, but I knew it. Well, I do know how I knew it.
Sneaky idea on that one, but yeah.
Couldn't at that instant have even told you why but I knew that I remember I wrote in a piece that I started to cry, that there was something about that sight that was so beautiful and touched me and moved me so deeply that I knew it was worth serving with the gift of writing.
Mm.
And so I came back home, and I would have thoughts, constantly be walking around, write about those men, write about those men, write about those men. And I would just say, no, I'm not ready. I'm just not ready. But it just kept coming back, write about those men, write about those men. And so it was really a beautiful process, because the other night I was pretty tired. And I thought, I might like to keep up my social media work. I should post something on Facebook. And I thought, and it came again, write about those men. I didn't have any idea how that piece was going to turn out. I just sat down and I thought, well, first I've got to give people a context about how I saw them, right? So I started there. And then this thing just started flowing. 30 minutes later, this piece was written. And then I went back and I used the tools of the trade. I'm a method writer. I've been trained in method writing. They're very distinct things that you learn to do to bring writing alive. And I went back with each sentence and I said, is there any way I can bring that alive? Because I want people to feel the beauty that I felt. And then I was able to pull in those skills to really amplify. And then another piece of it dropped in as I was doing that. It's so interesting to me. That process is just so fascinating to me, that somehow there was this divine knowing that there was something very beautiful to write about there. And then when I sat down to write, there was this gorgeous interplay between wisdom and the intellect.
And of course, in that moment, you could have been looking the other way.
Yeah.
But something meant you were looking there. And isn't that so wonderful to see as part of the bigger game?
Yeah. And I think that there is a discipline in that.
Mm.
So, I remember years ago hearing that the root word of discipline was disciple. And someone had written, I don't know where this comes from, so I salute the thinker, whoever it was, said, discipline is really about looking at yourself through the eyes of a teacher who loves you.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And I really love that. And I think that's the sort of feeling that I was in that night. I was tired. I could have easily said, oh man, I've been working 9 hours. I want to go sit and veg out in front of the TV. But that feeling of discipline, that feeling of, no, it's time. The time is right to serve this insight. Mm. And I just took a deep breath, and I had the discipline to sit down at my keyboard, and I started writing, and the words just like poured. It really was very short. It took me about 30 minutes to do that. Now, if I had done that and an hour later, I would have been laboring over it, it would have been very easy. Look, again, through looking at myself through the eyes of a teacher who loves me, to say, this isn't quite ready yet. It's half baked. Need to put it aside and come back to it. And so there's no feeling of, it's not urgency. There's no feeling of urgency. And it's, I often say this, to me, it's not that things are easy. It was not necessarily easy at that moment to sit down and think back to that funeral experience and be aware that I was a little tired, but it was with ease. It was effortless. It was not effortful. And I don't know how you feel about your creativity, but that's when I find that things are, that's when I find that I touch a particular beauty in the work that I do, when it comes from that effortless, non-urgent. I think that you use the word playful. That playful kind of space, the kind of playfulness to me that I think about when I was a child, and I would pick up a book and I would read, and that was my play. There was no play that was better for me than reading. I loved reading. Or when I picked up crayons and colored in a crayon book because I loved colors, or I picked up blocks and built with blocks because I loved making things. So it's that kind of playfulness, that sort of curiosity about what's going to come from this.
Oh, totally. I so get that from the point of view that, like you doing the method writing, each week as we've done something different, it's just been, oh, let's see what plays out here.
Yeah.
So there's always a lightness to it. And some of the things like dreaded associations, which will mean nothing to someone here, but it's about changing words around. I just adored the playfulness of that.
Oh, yeah.
Where as the words came out, you go, well, I don't know quite how that reads, but actually, when you read it out to people, even though there was the odd out of context words, the fascinating thing was people would say, I got out of listening to the words and just listened for the feel, which shows that, as Sid would say, don't listen to my words, listen to the feel. And maybe that's actually what a piece is about. It's all about the energy of the piece that comes through.
Oh, that's so beautiful. That's so beautifully put, Georgia. And I like that funeral piece that I wrote. It was not, I was really clear as I was writing it that it was not a piece about grief. And it was not a piece about a funeral. It was a piece about the oneness behind life.
I mean, I read it and I was sitting with you in that car. It was beautiful. I could see them. It's giving me goosebumps now from the point of view. It was the feeling of the piece.
The feeling of peace, the feeling of just open-heartedness and awe and feeling moved that comes when I think we touch the beautiful oneness that we are, from whence all creativity comes.
Mm. And you have I've got to put my glass on, it's on my phone, a picture, and this must be your new website. When you said at the end here, when we're at our best, we tap into an inner well of powerful intuition, creativity, and love. And I love this. You're a priestess at heart, which I so know, having spent time on courses with you. Definitely the priestess that comes forward. And actually, those two things, I think, just encompass you so beautifully, and how you turn, or as I see you turn up in the world. The most beautifully divine priestess of creation.
Well, it takes one to know one.
Thank you for spending time with me. It's been absolutely beautiful. And we'll look forward to the book, which is, I don't know when will this one be out?
I'm aiming for publication around the first of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Might be a little later than that, depending on how many editorial revisions it goes through yet. These books seem to have their own. It's kind of like babies. They decide.
Oh yeah,
when they're going to come. And give them a time frame, but they choose the exact moment.
And isn't that so interesting? I mean, I know when I've sat down and gone, this feels like a book may come out of this, and no conscious choice into that, just the feel. So again, it's creation at play.
Can I end with a little story that I heard?
Of course, I'd love you to.
I just love this, and it really helps me because a lot of the things that stop creators from creating are thoughts. They're all thought. It's always thought, but perfectionistic thoughts, self-doubting thoughts, underconfident thoughts, unworthy thoughts. For a while, one of the thoughts that stopped me had to do with relevance. Is my writing relevant? Is what I have to share relevant? Well, some time ago, when I was kind of asking myself this question of relevance, I came across a little thing that talked about the difference between Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci. And I regard those men as both extraordinary creative geniuses. And I'm not going to be able to give it exactly, so I apologize if I haven't got the story, all the details precisely right. But the comment the author was making was that Leonardo da Vinci was very perfectionistic. He was very detailed. He would do many, many, many drawings before he got started on a work. And he only produced a very small body of work. It's like just for the sake of a number, like 20 known masterpieces.
Mm.
In fact, many of his masterpieces are his drawings. He did beautiful, sketches that we all know as part of his artwork. But it was relatively small for an artist. Now, that's no judgment on Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo da Vinci is obviously a master. But Michelangelo's body of work is over 300.
Mm.
Because he just moved with the sheer delight of it. He wasn't worried about getting any piece right. He talked about how he was serving the art, the painting that wanted to come. He was freeing the sculpture from the marble, and he delighted in that process. I've been fascinated with him. I first read his autobiography when I was, or his biography when I was, I don't know, probably about 9 years old. And so part of his genius was that he just didn't care about the thinking.
With any of that stops us from doing anything, isn't it?
Yeah. So people often ask me, well, how do I free my creativity? How do I free myself as a writer? Well, there's a place where Sid Banks talks about Michelangelo in a little piece of manuscript that I don't know that it's been published anywhere, but Sid Banks is the man who talked about the three principles that we've referenced: mind, thought, and consciousness. And Sid says that part of what kept Michelangelo going, keeps any artist going, is that they're trying to express the inexpressible. They're trying to put into form what is formless and is inexpressible. They're trying to bring beauty to life in the form, and it will never match
the
sense of the formless, the beauty and artistry and depth and creativity of the formless. And so Sid made the comment that what kept Michelangelo going was that quest to just try to serve the beauty that he saw behind life. And he just kept going with that. He kind of knew he would never get it right. He was a very spiritual man.
And of course, the interesting thing is, again, if we come back to cards and where they lead you on to exploration, you're explaining exactly the same thing, but he was ongoing through the exploration of art. As writers are through writing, it's, if we're lucky, a never-ending exploration.
Yeah, and what's the practical message to anyone out there listening to it? In a way, it's kind of a Nike tagline: just do it.
Exactly.
You're never not going to have thoughts that you can't do it better. This is just built into the system. So just do it.
Totally. And I had that thought as it was coming into you in exactly the same words. How marvelous is that?
That is really marvelous.
Thank you. It's been beautiful sitting with you again.
It has. Thanks, Georgia. Thanks for the invitation. And thank you to anyone who listens in and, lifts us up in your listening. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So much love.